According to a new report, the Pittsburgh Steelers are now in talks with wide receiver Michael Thomas. I'm going to break down the potential fit between Thomas and the Steelers offense here today on Steelers Talk. Then we're also going to be talking about Cam Heyward and his contract situation. He's going to be sitting out OTAs. Is there any shot he sits out and holds out of training camp this year in order to get a new deal? And then finally, we'll talk about who Pro Football Focus says is the most underrated Steelers player currently on the roster. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already and join our family before we get things going on today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. We got daily Steelers videos covering the latest news and rumors surrounding this football team every single day. We also have breaking news coverage, so if the Steelers end up signing Michael Thomas in the coming hours, we're going to be going either live or get you guys a breaking news VOD. And then also we have weekly live shows every single Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And oh yeah, it's all 100% free. So if you love the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you bleed black and gold, this is going to be the place for you. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now. So let's start with today's top story, which surrounds free agent wide receiver Michael Thomas, where the Steelers have reportedly been in talks with the former All-Pro receiver. Formerly with the New Orleans Saints, he was cut earlier this offseason, and now apparently the Steelers have been in communication with him. This comes from Zachary Smith from Steelers Now, who says the Steelers have been in contact with free agent wide receiver Michael Thomas. And this definitely intrigues me. And actually, a couple weeks ago, I told you guys why I thought Michael Thomas was the best available fit on the free agency market. And that was still when Tyler Boyd was still on the market. That was still when there were some pretty decent wide receivers still on the market. And honestly, guys, if the Steelers end up adding Michael Thomas to this wide receiver room, this room does get better, okay? You do add somebody with a ton of experience, somebody that I think when healthy and when he's on the field is still a pretty darn good football player, and he has really strong hands, which allow him to make some really difficult catches and for him to be a potential safety blanket for Russell Wilson in this year's offense. So you take a look at his profile here. He's 31 years old, and he's got some nice size here, 212 pounds. He's known for those really strong hands, contested catch situations, and then also the run blocking, but he has not started more than 7 games in a season since 2019. That is pre-COVID. Now, he did play in 10 games last year, but he only started 7 for New Orleans. And like I said, guys, he's known for more of that short area route running. Of course, the calling card for him is the slant, but he can also win down the boundary with his ability to win those contested catch situations, which makes him not only a short area and intermediate threat, but also a red zone threat that can get touchdown receptions. Now, last year, just 1 touchdown catch with the New Orleans Saints. You could tell that relationship between Thomas and the Saints organization was deteriorating over the last several seasons. They had some contract disputes. But overall, man, when he was on the field, he actually played pretty darn well. When I went over his film, he was still getting open. He was still making good catches. He had 39 total last year for 448 yards in 10 games played, and in 7 starts, still averaged over a first down per reception. So overall, this is still somebody that can play a good wide receiver position in the National Football League if he can stay healthy. And that's, you can really see that in his career Pro Football Focus grades. Now, it's definitely not going in the right direction, right? Because since COVID, right, in 2020, he had an 85.2 Pro Football Focus grade. And before then, he was consistently in the 90s. He was one of the best receivers in football. But since that 2021 season where he missed the complete 2021 campaign, he had a 77.3 grade in 2022 and very limited action. And then he played in 10 games last year, had a grade of 67.4. But Derek Carr wasn't really getting him the football in ways that I thought he should have last year. And I just thought it wasn't a good situation for Michael Thomas. And right now, because of him dipping in production and the injury concerns, he's going to come extremely cheap for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he ends up signing with the black and gold. And listen, I understand that Michael Thomas is not the ideal option that Steelers fans were hoping for when they traded away Deontay Johnson, right? They were hoping for a Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel. And I'm right there with you guys. I want somebody that is a little bit more of a sure thing than Michael Thomas. But you look at the free agent market right now, and there's just not a whole lot of better options out there. I mean, tell me which receiver on this list is better than Michael Thomas when they're all healthy, right? Tell me. I mean, is Hunter Renfrow? No way. Michael Hardman? Corey Davis, he's completely washed. Same thing with Julio Jones. There is not another wide receiver that has more ability on the free agent market right now than Michael Thomas. So if the Steelers are looking to add another receiver to this room, I do think Thomas is the best overall fit, at least in terms of the free agency options. And then you might be saying to yourself right now, Jack, why don't we trade for a wide receiver? Isn't that what we've been talking about on the show all offseason, trading for another wide receiver? Absolutely. But the answer to that question is, I think at this point in the offseason, the chances of bagging a wide receiver in a trade are definitely lower in terms of the probabilities, because all the wide receivers that the Steelers have been connected to this offseason, there's reports out there saying that those teams don't want to part ways with those wide receivers. I mean, you look at the top options right now that most Steelers fans are kind of asking for. DK Metcalf, I mean, Seattle's trying to win now. Does it really make sense for them to give up their number one receiver? I'm not too sure it does, even though they could use the extra cap space by getting rid of him. I don't think Metcalf is gone. And then Deebo Samuel, the 49ers have said, we're not trading either Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, so they have shut down those rumors. And then apparently, according to a lot of people on the ground there in Denver, the Broncos have no interest in dealing Courtland Sutton either. So yes, I would rather have any of those wide receivers over Michael Thomas. I would, but you look at if you're sitting in the GM chair right now, if you're Steelers GM Omar Khan, and a trade isn't possible for one of these guys that are better than Michael, then you got to go out and make a move here. Now, something that's still out there is the Treylon Burks thing, and I do think he's probably the most likely trade option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. I don't think Sutton's getting dealt. I don't think Deebo's getting dealt, and I don't think DK is going to get dealt. If the Steelers can get a deal for one of those guys, great, but I do think the most likely trade option is Treylon Burks. And honestly, guys, give me Michael Thomas over Treylon Burks. I mean, I know Burks is younger, and he might even come a little bit cheaper, but, you know, they both have injury concerns, right? Michael Thomas is more established in this league than Treylon Burks is. I would rather have Michael Thomas on a one-year deal and then go out and draft another wide receiver to fill out this room next offseason than make an investment in a draft pick in trading for Treylon Burks, who I'm not convinced is really going to be anything in the National Football League. I think if you get Michael Thomas here, you can put Roman Wilson in kind of like that pseudo number 2 receiver spot / slot receiver spot, and Thomas is going to be a safety blanket on the short and intermediate routes for you, while George Pickens and Roman Wilson are your deep threats, and then also Thomas provides value as a red zone threat with his ability to use his size and his ability to make tough catches to get touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. So take your pick down there in the comments section. I think the two most likely options available right now for the Steelers are Michael Thomas or Treylon Burks, so let me know. Which one would you rather have? Type MT for Michael Thomas, or type TB if you'd rather trade a 6th-round pick for Treylon Burks. Or if you think there's another option out there that I'm kind of leaving out here and you want to let me know, type O down there in the comments section and let me know which receiver that is. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Now let's shift to the Cam Heyward stuff here, where it was reported a couple days ago that Cam Heyward is not going to be participating in the Steelers OTA program this year. He hasn't been participating in voluntary workouts as he seeks a new contract. We talked about it earlier this week. He's looking for an additional 2 years to the 1 year he still has on his contract right now, and it was reported by Jeremy Fowler earlier this week. Sources, Steelers 6-time Pro Bowl defensive end Cam Heyward has not attended voluntary offseason workouts and does not plan to attend OTAs as he seeks a contract extension. Hayward is a longtime team captain who's never missed an off-season program. And it's that last part there where Cam's usually there at voluntary workouts, and the fact that he's not there is getting some people worried. But I'm going to tell you guys this right now. I'm not worried about this whatsoever, and you shouldn't spend a lick of your time worrying about Cam Heyward not being a Pittsburgh Steeler next year or holding out of training camp. Plain and simply, guys, Cam even said it himself. These are voluntary workouts. I'm currently trying to figure out a new contract situation. He's been talking to the media here as of late. And I expect him to be at mandatory minicamp and at training camp. I expect him to be there. He's the team captain here, man, and he's somebody that loves the Pittsburgh Steelers. And right now, he's coming off a groin surgery that he got at the end of the season last year. He's getting older. He's getting up there in age. You know, he knows the system backwards, forwards, and sideways. He doesn't have to be at voluntary workouts, guys. So as he's negotiating this contract, I do think that it's nothing to worry about here because he's going to be there for everything that he needs to be there for. The mandatory minicamp, followed by training camp, and he's going to be ready to go for week 1 of the 2024 campaign. Now, coming up here, Pittsburgh's most underrated player on their roster right now, according to Pro Football Focus. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you can go to chatsports.com/Russ right now to get an officially licensed Russell Wilson Steelers jersey in your closet today. If you're someone like me and you believe that Russell Wilson is going to have quite a bit of success here in the Steel City, and you want to make a little bit of an investment here and get an awesome jersey here, that number 3, you can go to chatsports.com/Russ right now. That's our link. If you use that link, Fanatics will know that we sent you. I'll put that in the link in the comments and description today so you can help support the channel. Okay, now let's talk about Isaac Seumalo here because Pro Football Focus has named him as the most underrated Steelers player on the roster right now. And it's definitely pretty interesting here. This article is written by Zoltan Abuday, I hope I'm saying that right, from Pro Football Focus, who says Seumalo was part of arguably the NFL's best offensive line while in Philadelphia. And although he did not get off to a good start in Pittsburgh, he soon proved why the Steelers signed him as a free agent in 2023. Excluding the first 2 weeks, he earned a 78.3 PFF overall grade, which ranks 6th among guards during that span. So listen, man, I love Seumalo, and I do think he's underrated, but I think the most underrated player on the Steelers roster is Alex Highsmith because, I mean, who knows this guy's name? I mean, how many times have I caught people saying the Steelers need to get an edge in the draft or get an edge in free agency just because they didn't understand how good Alex Highsmith is? This guy had a 90.0 PFF grade last year. That was 10th in the National Football League. The year prior than that, he had more sacks than Micah Parsons, and nobody knows who this guy is, all right? It's because he's on the other side of TJ Watt. Of course, Cam Heyward is on this defensive line. Everybody thinks it's just those two getting all the production, but Alex Highsmith is one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League, and then not only is he a great pass rusher, but he's a really good run blocker, he's a solid tackler, and he's versatile and can go out into coverage as a true outside linebacker. This is one of the best overall defensive players in football, in my opinion. He got paid last year, and rightfully so, and I still think that he's one of the more underrated players, let alone on the Steelers, in the National Football League. I'm absolutely in love with Alex Highsmith's game. Now, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is Alex Highsmith the most underrated player on the Steelers? Is it Isaac Seumalo? Is it somebody else that I'm missing here? Let me know down there in the comments section what you have to say. So now let's talk a little bit to finish up today's show about DeMarvin Leal, because former Steeler Arthur Moats says that he thinks Leal reminds him of Stephon Tuitt, which, you know, if he could turn into Stephon Tuitt, that would be great for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. This is what Moats had to say. Leal reminds me of Tuitt when I'm watching, and I loved it. And I love Tuitt. He has everything to He has everything to do it. He just needs to buckle down. I'm hoping 2023 was a wake-up. I felt personally that him switching positions as much as it was happening, his technique when he was supposed to be back as an interior defensive lineman wasn't as crisp and fundamentally sound. You'll see him penetrate at times and see him make a play, but when you're trying to bump back in and do what you need to do, that pad level isn't where it needs to be, and the hand placement isn't where it needs to be. So here's the thing when it comes to DeMarvin Leal, guys. I think that he's a very intriguing player. He's very physically talented. He's a bit of a tweener because he's not exactly an edge rusher, and he's not exactly an interior player, at least a bigger interior player. But the big thing with him, man, the reason why he hasn't been a rotational player for this defense and he hasn't really gotten much playing time is because his technique isn't where it needs to be. He plays with high pad level. He doesn't have good hand placement. Leal has been a big disappointment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a bit of a project when they took him on, but to this point it hasn't worked out. Now, when Mike Tomlin, the head coach, was asked about Leal, at the end of the season and whether or not he had a future role with this team, this is what he had to say. There certainly is, but he's got to be a competent, but he's got to be a component of that. Obviously, we put helmets on guys that we think are best positioned to help us secure victory, and he hadn't been a component of that. And so he's got some work to do. So listen, I've said it before, guys, and I'll say it again. 2024 is do or die for DeMarvin Leal because he's heading into yet another season here where you're expecting him to take another step forward, and we haven't seen a step forward yet. So he needs to really take that step this year because, you know, the clock's kind of running out here, all right? The hourglass is starting to empty, and he needs to really show his value to this team other than potential because you only get a certain amount of years where it's like, well, you know, you're going to be better down the line. No, I mean, now's the point where you got to put up or shut up. You need to be a good player or they're going to get rid of you. So DeMarvin, I hope you're listening, and I hope that you're ready to go in 2024. You got all the physical talent in the world, and I would love for you to be eventually Larry Ogunjobi's replacement at 5 technique. You got all the talent to do it, but you got to take the coaching and you got to take the prerogative here to make yourself a better football player. So here's so predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will DeMarvin Leal make the final roster in 2024? Give me a yes or give me a no. Let me know if you think Leal makes the final roster here in 2024. So for more content from me on social media, you can find me on X at Jack_Sperry. I put up channel updates on there. I put on a bunch of Steelers updates on there as well, and then just general NFL analysis. And then also on Instagram, I'm at spairdog.football. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it, guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button. And until tomorrow, here we go, Steelers.